Hey everyone, I'm working to hit 1,000 subscribers, and I need your help to get there. If you enjoy this content, please hit that subscribe button right now.
What's really going on inside the Minnesota Vikings organization right now? The truth is about to blow your mind. While fans are desperately clinging to playoff hopes, insiders are already planning massive roster shakeups that could completely transform this team. We're talking blockbuster trades, controversial roster moves, and one defensive coordinator whose departure could send the entire franchise into a downward spiral. Buckle up, Vikings faithful, because what you're about to hear might make you question everything you thought you knew about this team's future. The rumors have been swirling for weeks, but now we've got concrete information straight from someone deep inside Vikings Nation. This isn't speculation anymore. This is real talk about real moves that could reshape the entire NFC North landscape. And trust me, some of these potential decisions are going to have fans absolutely losing their minds. Let's start with the elephant in the room that nobody wants to talk about, Jordan Addison. Yeah, that Jordan Addison, the second-year receiver who was supposed to be the perfect complement to Justin Jefferson, the guy the Vikings traded up to get in the 2023 draft. According to our insider sources, he's officially on the trading block, and it's not even a secret anymore within the organization. The writing is on the wall, and it's written in big, bold letters that spell out "Trade me." Here's the cold, hard reality that Vikings management is facing right now. They're paying Justin Jefferson a whopping $35 million per year. That's superstar money for a superstar player, and nobody's arguing Jefferson doesn't deserve every penny. But here's where it gets complicated. Jordan Addison is going to want somewhere between $25 and $28 million per year when his rookie contract is up. Do the math with me here. That's potentially $63 million tied up in just two wide receivers. In today's NFL, where you need depth at every position and cap space is more precious than gold, that's simply not sustainable. So, what's Addison worth on the trade market? Our insider pegs his value at a second-round pick minimum. The Vikings aren't giving him away for a third-rounder. That would be insulting considering his talent level and production. Ideally, they're looking for a second-round pick plus a player, which would give them maximum flexibility to address other needs. But here's where things get absolutely wild. Imagine this scenario. The Tennessee Titans finish with a top 3 pick. They desperately need weapons for their young quarterback. They could snag Caleb Downs, one of the most talented safety prospects to come out of college in years. That would be franchise-altering, folks. That's the kind of aggressive move that separates contenders from pretenders. But wait. It gets even crazier. Hold on to your purple jerseys because our insider just dropped an absolute bombshell that nobody saw coming. Jonathan Greenard. Yeah, you heard that right. The edge rusher who's been a solid contributor, making about $23 million per year for the next couple of seasons. He could be on the move too. Why would the Vikings even consider this? 2 words. Dallas Turner. The Vikings need to know what they have in Dallas Turner, their 2024 first-round pick. You can't properly evaluate a young edge rusher when you've got a veteran taking up most of the snaps. Greenard has done a great job, don't get me wrong. He's been productive and professional, but the Vikings could potentially move him, collect some serious draft capital, and simultaneously give Turner the opportunity to prove whether he's the real deal or just another draft bust. This would be the shock trade that comes completely out of left field. Most fans, if you ask them right now, would immediately say Addison is the guy getting traded. Nobody's thinking about Greenard. That's what makes this potential move so fascinating and so brutally ruthless. This is the kind of cutthroat business decision that NFL teams have to make when they're trying to build a sustainable winner. Now let's talk about the playoff picture because Vikings fans are still holding out hope. Even though the math is becoming more impossible, Vikings have to win out every single remaining game. No slip-ups, no close losses, no moral victories, just wins. But that's only the beginning. The Chicago Bears cannot win another game, not one. 0-4 down the stretch. The Detroit Lions can only win one more game maximum, and that victory cannot come against the Vikings. When you lay it out like that, it sounds almost laughable, doesn't it? We're basically praying for a perfect storm of results that have maybe a 5% chance of actually happening. But hey, that's why they play the games, right? Crazier things have happened in the NFL, just not very often. The Vikings did show some signs of life in their demolition of the Bears, running the football effectively for the first time in what feels like forever. 34 carries for 162 yards on the ground. They stayed committed to the run game throughout all four quarters, including one absolutely dominant 19-play drive that went for 98 yards. This is what Vikings fans have been begging Kevin O'Connell to do all season long. So why did it take so long? Why did it require a complete quarterback catastrophe and playoff elimination for the offensive coordinator finally to remember that running the football is legal in the NFL? O'Connell talked about dumbing down the playbook for J.J. McCarthy and the younger quarterbacks. But here's a revolutionary idea. Maybe the playbook was too complex all along. Maybe instead of dumbing it down, they should have been tailoring it to their personnel from day one. Spread it out, go 5 wide, run the football when it makes sense, get the young quarterback some confidence early in games. If this simpler approach works better, then perhaps the so-called complex offense was just complexity for complexity's sake. Sometimes the best offensive scheme isn't the most intricate one. Sometimes it's the one that your players can actually execute at a high level week after week. But here's where we need to talk about the real crisis facing this franchise, and it has nothing to do with the offense. Brian Flores, the defensive coordinator who has somehow taken a collection of spare parts and cast-offs and turned them into a legitimately elite defensive unit. This man is about to get head coaching offers, and when he leaves, the Vikings defense is going to fall off a cliff. That's not negativity, that's just reality. Think about the actual talent level on this defense. Really think about it. Compare it to other elite defenses around the league. Look at the Houston Texans. They've got Danielle Hunter, Will Anderson, elite defensive tackles, Azeez Al-Shaair at linebacker, and a secondary featuring Kamari Lassiter, Derek Stingley, and Jalen Peter. Those are legitimate blue-chip players all over the field. Now look at the Vikings roster. Where are the blue chippers? Jonathan Greenard is good. Blake Cashman has been inconsistent this year. Josh Metellus has been solid but not spectacular. Harrison Smith is having a decent season, but he's clearly aging. The Vikings probably have about O'Connell, and promoting Brian Flores to head coach, that might not be the worst idea in the world. Flores has already been a head coach with the Miami Dolphins. He went through that experience, learned from it, and presumably grew as a leader. He's proven he can manage a roster and handle the media. More importantly, he's shown he can take limited talent and maximize every ounce of production. That's exactly what head coaches are supposed to do. Obviously, this isn't happening. The Vikings aren't firing O'Connell. But the point is that Flores is that valuable. He's that good. And the Vikings need to do absolutely everything in their power to keep him on staff for as long as humanly possible. Speaking of upcoming games, the Vikings face the Dallas Cowboys next Sunday, and this matchup is fascinating for multiple reasons. The Cowboys defense has been wildly inconsistent this season. They've shown flashes of dominance and then completely collapsed in other games. They're much better against the run now after trading for Quentin Williams, but they're still extremely vulnerable through the air. That means Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison should have opportunities to make plays. Will it be another 31-0 beatdown like the last time these teams met? Probably not. Lightning rarely strikes twice in the exact same way. But the Vikings should be able to move the ball and put up points if they execute their game plan properly. Let's take a moment to reflect on this roller coaster of a season. What's been your favorite memory as a Vikings fan? Despite all the disappointment, all the quarterback chaos, all the heartbreak, there have been some genuinely great moments. Week 1 featured that incredible fourth quarter comeback. Isaiah Rodgers had that pick 6 against the Colts. That was absolutely beautiful. And who could forget the Lions game? That was peak Vikings football. J.J. McCarthy making clutch throws, the defense getting key stops, Aaron Jones sealing the game on that crucial 3rd and 6 conversion. That game had everything, the energy, the execution, the drama. That's the version of this team that everyone thought we'd see all season long. Instead, it was more of a fleeting glimpse of what could have been rather than a sustainable standard of performance. Now let's address some other burning questions that Vikings fans are desperately seeking answers to. What about the backup quarterback situation for next season? Names like Joe Flacco and Jameis Winston keep getting mentioned, and honestly, neither would be a bad choice. Flacco showed in Indianapolis that he can still come in and manage games effectively when needed. He's not going to wow anyone with his arm strength at this point in his career, but he understands defenses, makes good decisions, and protects the football. Winston, on the other hand, brings something completely different to the table, talent and flair, as one fan perfectly described it. He's going to make spectacular throws and boneheaded interceptions, sometimes in the same game. But he's entertaining. He's a legitimate leader in the locker room, and he keeps things interesting. Either guy could be signed without breaking the bank, and both would provide valuable veteran presence in that quarterback room. Then there's the Kwesi Adofo-Mensah question. Should the Vikings general manager be shown the door after this disastrous season? There's a legitimate argument to be made that his roster construction has been flawed from the beginning. Remember when his supposed strength was manipulating the salary cap and being creative in free agency? Where's that advantage now? The Vikings are paying premium prices for average players while letting quality contributors walk in free agency. They're stuck in salary cap hell despite Kwesi's reputation as some kind of cap wizard. The draft picks haven't panned out the way they were supposed to. The quarterback situation has been an unmitigated disaster from start to finish. If this team ends up with a top 12 pick, which is looking increasingly likely, that's not just valuable for the first round. That draft position is gold for rounds 2 and 3 as well. The Vikings desperately need to capitalize on that opportunity by having someone making picks who actually knows how to evaluate talent. Does that mean Kwesi gets fired? Probably not. The Wilf family doesn't typically make drastic changes unless things are completely falling apart. But should he be on the hot seat? Absolutely. This offseason will be a referendum on his ability to build a winner. The running back situation is another fascinating subplot heading into the offseason. If Kevin O'Connell actually commits to running the football the way he did against Washington, then Jeremiah Love becomes an extremely interesting draft target. This kid out of Notre Dame is special. He's got breakaway speed, excellent vision, and the kind of home run hitting ability that opens up entire offenses. Imagine pairing him with Aaron Jones in a committee approach where both guys are getting quality touches. That would give the Vikings the kind of rushing attack that could actually control games and keep their defense fresh. But that only works if O'Connell genuinely commits to the run game, not just for 1 week, but as a foundational element of the offense going forward. The comparison between Mike Zimmer's defenses and Brian Flores' current unit is absolutely fascinating from a historical perspective. Zimmer's 2017 defense was legitimately one of the best units in Vikings franchise history. Eric Kendricks, Danielle Hunter, Everson Griffin, Linval Joseph, Xavier Rhodes, Harrison Smith, that squad was absolutely loaded with blue-chip talent at every level. They could stop the run, rush the passer, and lock down receivers in coverage. They had everything. Flores, by contrast, is working with significantly less talent, but achieving comparable results through scheme and coaching brilliance. If you gave Flores the personnel that Zimmer had in 2017, you'd be looking at potentially the best defense in the entire NFL. That's how good this man is as a coordinator. Zimmer loved his double-A gap mug looks, similar to what Flores does, but he played a lot more soft zone coverage on the back end. Flores prefers to get aggressive, press receivers, and assert dominance at the line of scrimmage. Both schemes have their merits, but in today's NFL, where explosive passing offenses are everywhere, Flores' aggressive approach might be better suited to compete with the Chiefs, Bills, and other high-powered attacks. The question isn't necessarily which scheme is better in a vacuum, but rather which scheme is better equipped to handle the modern NFL landscape. And right now, Flores is showing he can neutralize elite offenses with inferior personnel, which is the ultimate coaching achievement. Looking at the bigger picture, this Vikings season represents a crossroads moment for the franchise. They're not good enough to compete for championships, but they're not bad enough to completely blow it up and start over. They're stuck in that dreaded NFL purgatory where you're perpetually picking in the middle of the draft, never quite bad enough to get a franchise-altering prospect, but never good enough to make a deep playoff run. That's where smart front office decisions become absolutely crucial. Do you trade away valuable assets like Addison and Greenard to accumulate draft capital? Do you go all in on one more run with the current core? Do you blow it up and embrace a full rebuild? These are the decisions that separate successful franchises from perennial mediocrity. The Cowboys game looming on the schedule provides a perfect opportunity for the Vikings to build some momentum heading into what could be a defining offseason. Dallas has been frustratingly inconsistent, which makes them the perfect opponent for a Vikings team trying to find its identity. If Minnesota can put together a complete performance on both sides of the ball, they can head into the offseason with at least some positive vibes. If they lay an egg and get embarrassed, it's going to be a long, painful winter of soul-searching and second-guessing. The potential trades we've discussed aren't just about clearing cap space or accumulating picks. They're about setting a direction for this franchise. Trading Addison would signal that the Vikings are prioritizing defense and building through the trenches. Trading Greenard would indicate a commitment to developing young talent and taking calculated risks on unproven players. Either move would be defensible from a roster construction standpoint, but both would require courage and conviction from the front office. That's what Vikings fans should be watching for this offseason. Not just which moves get made, but whether those moves indicate a clear vision for what this team is trying to become. The quarterback situation remains the ultimate question mark, hanging over everything. J.J. McCarthy is the presumptive future, but he's unproven at the NFL level. Sam Darnold showed flashes of competence mixed with the same old mistakes. The veteran free agent market will be thin. The draft class doesn't feature any can't-miss prospects at the position. This is where Kwesi's job security should really be evaluated. Can he solve the quarterback puzzle that has plagued this franchise for decades? Can he find a sustainable answer at the most important position in sports? Or will the Vikings continue cycling through mediocre options while watching other teams build around franchise quarterbacks? The defensive coordinator position might be the most important hire the Vikings make in the next 5 years, assuming Flores leaves for a head coaching job. How do you replace a coach who's getting Pro Bowl level performance from practice squad players? How do you maintain the aggressive identity that's become the hallmark of this defense? The Vikings will likely promote from within, probably elevating someone who's learned under Flores and understands his system. But there's a massive difference between understanding a system and being able to teach it and adjust it on the fly the way Flores does. That hire could determine whether this defense remains elite or regresses back to mediocrity. This season has been a masterclass in disappointment for Vikings fans, but it's also been educational. We've learned that this team's ceiling is lower than we thought. We've learned that the offensive genius Kevin O'Connell might not be quite as creative as advertised. We've learned that Brian Flores is even better than we realized. We've learned that this roster needs significant upgrades at multiple positions if they want to compete with the true elite teams in the NFC. Most importantly, we've learned that this offseason will be absolutely critical for determining the trajectory of this franchise for the next 5 years. So here's what Vikings fans need to be watching as the season winds down and the offseason approaches. First, what does Kevin O'Connell do with the offense in these final games? Does he stick with the simplified approach that worked against Washington, or does he revert back to his complex scheme that players struggled to execute? Second, what kind of trade market develops for Jordan Addison and potentially Jonathan Greenard? Are there teams willing to pay premium prices for quality players? Third, can the Vikings keep Brian Flores on staff, or is he destined for a head coaching position elsewhere? Fourth, how does the front office handle the backup quarterback situation? And finally, what direction do they take in the draft? Do they prioritize offense, defense, or try to balance both? The answers to these questions will tell us everything we need to know about where this franchise is headed. Right now, it feels like the Vikings are at a crossroads, and the path they choose will define the next era of football in Minnesota. Will they make bold moves and embrace change, or will they play it safe and hope for incremental improvement? Will they build around young talent, or will they try to squeeze one more competitive year out of aging veterans? Will they finally solve the quarterback position, or will they continue searching for answers at the most important spot on the roster? One thing is certain, this offseason is going to be absolutely fascinating to watch. The Vikings have decisions to make, trades to explore, coaches to potentially replace, and a roster to rebuild. Some of those moves will be popular with fans and others will be controversial. But make no mistake, this is when championships are won or lost. The teams that make smart decisions in the offseason are the ones hoisting Lombardi trophies in February. The teams that make mistakes end up right back in purgatory, wondering what could have been. Vikings fans have every right to be frustrated with how this season unfolded, but they also have reason for optimism if the front office handles this offseason correctly. There's talent on this roster. There are good coaches in place. There's a passionate fan base that deserves better. Now it's time for the people making decisions to step up and deliver. No more excuses, no more moral victories, no more wait until next year. It's time to build a sustainable winner that can compete for championships year after year. Anything less is unacceptable. So buckle up, Vikings Nation. This offseason is going to be wild. Trades are coming, coaching changes are likely, and the entire direction of this franchise hangs in the balance. Whether you're excited or terrified probably depends on how much faith you have in the people making these crucial decisions. But one way or another, we're about to find out what this team is really made of and what kind of future awaits in Minnesota. The next few months will define this franchise for years to come, and every fan will be watching with bated breath to see which direction they choose. If you made it this far, you're a true Vikings diehard, and this team is lucky to have fans like you who stick with them through the ups and downs. Make sure to drop a comment below with your thoughts on these potential trades, whether you think Flores stays or goes, and what moves you'd make if you were running this team. Hit that like button if you want more brutally honest Vikings content, and subscribe so you don't miss any of the breaking news as this wild offseason unfolds. This is going to be a ride you won't want to miss, so strap in and get ready. The Minnesota Vikings are about to enter one of the most important offseasons in franchise history, and you'll want to be along for every twist and turn. Until next time, Skullbikes, and let's hope this team finally gets it right.